Hello everyone! We are going to be doing Paint Your Pet today. So as you can see, I already have some pet helpers. They'll probably be wandering in and out today. So I'm going to show you what you need and then show you how to do it. So let's get started with what you need. First and foremost, you're going to need some kind of paper like this. Now this is watercolor paper. Comes in a notebook that looks like this, and you might not have that at home, but if you do, please use something like that. And then you will need some type of paint. You can also use regular paper here, but just be aware that if you use watercolors with the regular paper, you'll want to put something underneath of it because it will get pretty soggy. So you'll also need, of course, a paintbrush of some kind. You don't have to be fancy. I just happen to have paintbrushes on hand. But most of this stuff you can definitely just find hanging out. If you happen to have a canvas, you can also use one of those. And then you can decide which type of paint you want to use. I'm probably going to be using watercolor today. If you have a palette like this at home, they work really well to hold the paint. If you don't, I usually just use a regular plate and then make sure to wipe it off really, really well and put it in the dishwasher or wash it by hand after you're done. This is my cookie sheet tin. I use this when I'm painting on things so that it doesn't get super messy. I think most commonly people have acrylic paints at home. That's what these kind of look like. Make sure if you're using these to really shake them up before you get started. Watercolors don't have to be fancy. I use these a lot. These are just the cheap, come with coloring book kind of paints, and they always come with a paintbrush. So if you have something like this laying at home, this works as well. More visitors. If you do feel like getting fancy, this is actual watercolor paint. Comes in a little tube usually like this. And you will need a cup of water. So I'm gonna go get that and we'll get started. Alright, there's our cup of water. I'm gonna just set that there. Another handy thing to have is paper towels. So in case you need to clean a brush a little bit more thoroughly, usually just swishing it around in the water will be sufficient, but when your water starts to get a little more murky, then those paper towels help. And you probably will have to change out your water as you're doing this. And then last but not least, what I forgot that you need is a picture of your pet. Now, see, this quality is not great. Our printer is running out of ink, but that's okay because this is going to be kind of abstract. This is my dog Porter laying in some grass. So I have the real picture to use as reference, and I would suggest that you do that. But depending on your paper, this is going to fit almost perfectly on a sheet of paper or canvas, and so that works well. Now, the one thing that I have here at home that you might not have at home, I know a lot of people don't use this very often, is called tracing paper. It's carbon tracing paper. Just looks just like this. And then I'm going to be using that to get just a start. Do not feel like you need to do that. You can just copy from the picture by looking at it, and then you don't have to worry about if it's fancy or not. But I'm going to just do this. I'm going to use this and show you how it works, so that maybe in the future, if you'd like to use that, you can do that. Okay, let's get started, everybody. So first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to paint the background. So go ahead and do that, and don't worry if you cover over something, you know, if you get a little outside the lines, that's okay. And give it whatever colors you want. It really could be bright yellow, it could be anything. I chose the greens and the browns so that it looked like the leaves and the grass. But really, it can be whatever you want. Go crazy. After you have that painted, I like to start with the darker colors. I feel like it helps me to blend later on, and so I like to use those dark colors, and so I'm going to start with the black. Now that we have our black on there, you can see I'm just kind of doing a little outline. I tend to use more water because I like the effect of what it looks like when it's done. A little bit more messy, if you will. Obviously this isn't going to be a perfect portrait. It's going to be a little abstract looking. If you want to try for that perfect portrait, go ahead, but just know that anything that you do, any art that you make, is going to be amazing regardless. Getting some tummy spots on there. So now you can see I am starting to use the browns. I'm going to start filling in with the brown next to kind of give it some depth. I have two different browns, a slightly darker one and then a little bit brighter brown that I'm going to be using. I do like to use a little bit of just a tiny touch of black in my white, because the stark white I feel like doesn't look as natural, and so I did put just a dollop of black into the white paint so that I could use it as a little bit more of a shade rather than just white. And you can kind of see that there in the shading. It's not pure white. I'm going to start using that white to kind of go over some of the different areas that might need some highlighting. So especially this ear up here, that one's going to be a tricky part because it's very sunlit, and obviously this isn't going to be as bright as the picture is. I'm going to use the white on the muzzle there too to try and lighten up his white streak. He's getting to be an old boy too, so we're kind of using a little bit muted white on top of everything. So it's just kind of blending in and helping to shade there. I'm doing now is I'm just going lightly around everything in black just to kind of give it a little bit more definition, and then I'll blur the black into the picture. So the outline will still be there, but it will be slightly softer, so it's not just like, here I am. You might notice here that I am using that paper towel that we talked about to kind of dab a little of the extra moisture off. Again, I like to use a lot of water when I'm painting. I know not everybody does, because I like the effect when it's done, kind of a surreal blur of things. And so I sometimes will use, when I'm doing the more detail work, like you can see I'm doing it around the eyes, I do that to make sure that the eye stays where I need it to stay. It doesn't blend into everything else. Now if you want to, go ahead and just take your larger paintbrush, the one that you might have used to do the background, and go ahead and just dip it in a color, and we're going to just kind of spritz the picture. Make sure you get it really, really close to the picture, not so close that you're touching it, obviously, a little bit higher, maybe about a half inch to an inch away from the paper. And do this somewhere where you're not going to splatter something important, like the couch, or brother or sister, or whatever, the cat. And go ahead and just spritz your paintbrush onto your picture, and it makes a really cool effect. It doesn't matter where you spritz it, anywhere is fine, because everywhere it's going to look like it's intentional. And there you go. You have a finished picture. Hopefully it looks kind of like what your original picture looked like. Porter is laying on his back, and he's a chunky basset hound, so most of this picture is just his chunk going to one side. But hopefully you enjoyed painting along, and it doesn't really matter what comes out because you made it, and that is the important thing, that you did something very cool by painting this picture of your pet. Feel free to share your pet pictures in the comments. We'd love to see them after they're done. We're very excited for you to show us your pets. And feel free to use your source picture too. Send us both. We'd love to see that. Thanks for watching, everybody.